Hey everybody, so I thought we would color up this cute Whimsy Stamps image called Berry. She was one of the Christmas card kits that I did this year for the store. She's already sold out, but I told someone I would color her, so we're going to work on that. I've stamped her on Nina 80-pound Solar White cardstock with Memento Tuxedo Black ink. So let's get started. So I'm going to start by outlining my image with C0, and I'm going to do it first this time because I use some red, and I'm notorious for touching it and getting it everywhere else. So I'm just going to skip that part and just outline her first. So I'm going to go ahead with my C0, and I'm just going to go all the way around the image and just give her an outline. And just kind of flick over those little strings from her scarf there. And she's got a little white space right in here between the scarf. Go around that little curly Q. I'm also going to outline her little wand here. If you get some on your image, it's not going to be a big deal because you're going to be coloring some dark greens and some reds and stuff on these little wands, so it didn't matter that I got a little bit on there. I wasn't too worried about that. Okay, and then I'm going to give her something to stand on, and for that I'm going to use B_0 and B_0. And I'm going to start with my B_0, and I always start a little bit above where her feet are. I don't make it go straight across, so I'm just going to flick out away from her feet. You can go out as far as you want or as little as you want. And again, I'm going to try to go so it's kind of even with this other side. And then I'm going to blend that with my B_0 pen. I'm just going to lightly go over the edge. Like that. So now let's go ahead and work on her skin. Zoom in a little closer here. So she's got a little bit of her legs poking out down here underneath of her dress. So I'm going to go ahead and outline right underneath of her dress. And I'm going to do the front and right along her boot. And this one's pretty small, so I'm just going to fill that side in. And then I'm going to take my E00 and I'm going to fill the rest of this leg in. And then she doesn't have any more skin except for up here on her face. So again, I'm going to go with my E21 and I'm going to outline her face first. Get right along her bangs, underneath her muffin here, her ear muffs. And then she's got a little bit of a little nose right there, but I'm going to give her like a little indentation so it looks like there's a shadow right there. And I'm going to grab E00, and I'm going to lay down on top of my E21, and I'm going to brush that out into my white space, softening my line. And if you get some in her hair, that's not going to matter because she's going to have brown hair, so it's okay if you get a little bit up there and it will cover that up. Go over here. That, and then I'm going to fill in that little white space with E00. And let's give her some cheeks, so I'm going to do R20. And this side, I'm just going to pull away from the side of her face just a little bit, kind of round it. And then over here, I'm just going to give her a little bit right underneath of her eye. Kind of give her a little circle there, like that. And then I'm going to take R30, and I'm just going to very lightly go on the edge of my R20 just to soften it. And then I'm going to go back with my E21. And because her face is tipped down over here, I'm going to go ahead and brush a little bit of E21 over my cheek. I'm going to go ahead and go up here next to her hairline. And I'm going to grab E00 and brush over that line. Soften it up. Go over the rest of this cheek. And then I'm going to go from this side over this cheek. Maybe a little bit up here in this hair. And then I'm going to take my E00 and just brush over the whole thing. So for her hair, I'm going to use E79, E77, and E74. And I'm going to start with E79, and I'm going to do bangs first. And so I'm going to add a little bit of my 79 right at the crown where it looks like it separates from her ponytail back here. But then I also want the little tips, they curl under, so I want them to be a little bit darker. And this little section right here is actually behind, so I'm going to fill that in. I'm going to add a little bit to each of these little strands. I think I'll add a little bit right above this ear muff here. And then I'm going to grab 77. And I'm going to flick it right over the top of my 79. And I'm going to pull down. I want to fill in a little bit of that white. And I want to go up from the bottom. And then we're going to fill it in with our 74. We're going to go do the back of her hair. So again, I'm going to grab E79. And I want it to be dark right where it folds in where her roots would be. And her hair goes clear down here around her ear muff. Since she doesn't have too much over here, I'm going to try to leave enough space for one of my other colors. And then we're going to go down this way away from the hair decoration. And then we're going to get this cute little curly cue she's got up here. So we're going to go above the holly berries. And then we're going to get this side where it rolls underneath. I'm going to grab 77. We're going to add more color to this side. So we're going to go ahead and flick on top of our 79. And I try to keep my flicks going in the same direction that her hair is. And I'm going to fill in these little small sections right down here. Then we're going to go up here and flick down from the top. And I'm going to fill this all the way in on this side. And then we're going to go up here and do a little ponytail. Okay, and I want her ponytail to appear that it rolls over, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of this dark on the other side of these, like that. Then I'm going to grab 74 and fill it in. And it looks like I missed one right there, so I'm going to grab my 79 again. I didn't go far enough over. And then 77. And then fill it in with 74. And then I always like to go back after I've colored in and add some streaks, so I'm going to grab my E79, and I'm just going to hold my pen straight up and down, and I'm just going to flick in some hair strands. And my strands are usually longer than the first time I use the color. And you want your strands to go with the flow of the hair. So you want it to look like part of the ponytail. You wouldn't want to do your strands going straight across like this because her hair is not growing that way. A few down here. Get this one. And don't forget a ponytail. Just like that. So now let's go color the dress, and for that I'm going to use BG 99, 96, 93, and 90. And I'm going to start with the dress, so for that I'm going to use 93 and 90. And I'm going to add my darkest first. I'm going to go with the 93. And I'm going to add a little bit right here in these little creases so she has to go around my little cat. And right next to her sleeve and her scarf. And then her sleeve has some great little creases in it, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit on there. And I'm going to go next to her collar, or her little cuff right here. And then I'm going to grab my 93, but because it's such a light color compared to 90, or I'm going to grab my 90, such a light color compared to 93, I'm going to go ahead and, since my pen has all this gunk right here at the top, I'm going to pick up some of that ink with my my BG90, and I'm going to use the ink I picked up to color that in, to soften my line. And if your pen's clean, you could just wipe your pen on a piece of acetate or an acrylic block or whatever, or you can even actually just touch your pen to the end of the marker. That's totally up to you. It won't hurt your marker any. But this is a great way to clean the end. And then as the ink runs out, it worked out perfect because the shoulder is a lot lighter than it is on the bottom. Okay, so then we're going to go down here. We're going to do her skirt of her dress. So I'm going to again go with my BG93, and I'm going to go underneath this little belt, and then do some of these little lines right along her coat or her sleeve there. And we're going to go around the kitty. And I'm going to go ahead and pull my ink out a little bit further away from the cat, like that. And then she's got a little swoop right here, a little wrinkle, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of color in there. And same with this little wrinkle. Okay, and because I've cleaned pretty much off my marker, I'm going to grab my little piece of acetate here, and all it is a piece of clear plastic, and I've taped it to a piece of cardstock just so I can see it. And I'm going to take my BG93 and I'm just going to color some color onto my acetate. And then I'm going to use my BG90 to pick it up so I can transition out here a little bit further. It just helps soften that line. And then just fill it the rest of the way in. And I think I'm going to actually add some more BG93. Darken it up just a little bit more over here, maybe a little bit in this little wrinkle. And then I'm going to grab my 90 pen again. I'm going to pick up some of my BG93 off of my acetate sheet. There, that looks much better. Alright, so then for the alternate stripes and the cuffs on her outfit, I'm going to use BG99 and 96. I'm going to start with my 99. I'm going to add where I want it to be darkest, so I'm going to add a little bit at the bottom of her little cuff right here. And the kitty's paw is going to cast a little bit of shadow, so I'm going to add a bit in there. And then her belt, add a little bit to her belt. And then each one of these little stripes where her dress touches her skirt here, I'm going to put a little bit in there. And I skipped every other one. And I guess I could have done the lighter colored ones before I did the darker ones, but that's alright. And then I'm going to grab 96 and I'm going to fill those in. We'll try not to go out of the lines there. Let's fill the rest of those little squares in. Okay, and then I'm going to grab my 93 and my 90 again. I'm going to start with my 93. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to do half of each of these alternate stripes. And then I'm going to grab my 90 and my piece of acetate so I can pick up a little bit of my color. And we're just going to finish coloring those stripes in. Like that. Now let's do her scarf, mittens, boots, and her earmuffs. And for that I'm going to use E84, E81 in the colorless blender. And I'm going to start with E84. And I'm going to do her earmuff first. So I'm going to add a little bit of my E84 right down at the bottom here and right along her face. And then I'm going to do the same thing over here. I'm going to add a little bit my E84 like this, and then I'm going to grab 81 and I'm just going to soften that edge a little bit. Same for this. I'm just going to pull away from that line just a tad, and then I'm going to grab my colorless blender and I'm just going to lightly go over that edge. Just flick right over it and soften it so that it doesn't have hardly any line there. Like that. And then let's go down here and do her little muffs, her little mittens she's got. So again, I'm going to start with my 84. And I made the stripes red, so I'm just going to add a little bit to the bottom of each one of these little mittens with my 84, just cast a little bit of a shadow. Then we're going to grab 81, we're going to add a little bit, I just want to soften that line, so I'm just adding a tiny bit. And then I'm going to soften that line with my colorless blender. Looks pretty good. Okay, so let's go up here and do her scarf. So again, I'm going to go back to my E84, and she's got a little loop right here that's in the back, so I'm going to go ahead and grab that, and right next to her face is going to cast a shadow, so I'm going to leave a little bit in there, and then it kind of loops down and around over here, and you want to get these little lumps, and then where it comes out from underneath of her hair, it's going to cast a little bit of shadow. I'm just going to add a little dab in there, and here's a little wrinkle, so I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of my 84 there. Then I'm going to grab 81, and you're just softening that line, so you're just adding a little bit on top of it. Just barely pulling it out. And then you're just going to go over that whole thing with your colorless blender and soften that line. Let's do the back part of her scarf. And again, I'm going to grab E84. I do right along that one where it's touching the other scarf. And I'm doing this little loop where it touches it right here. And then the underneath of the scarf where it folds under, I want to get that with my darkest one. It's pretty dark down there. We want to fill that in. Like that. And then I'm going to grab 81. Just add a little bit on top of that to soften it just a little bit. a little bit of this right in here maybe. Add a little bit of an edge on there. Then I'm going to soften that line with my colorless blender. So the whole thing still appears pretty white, it's just got some shadows on there. Okay, let's go do our boots. And for our boots, again, I'm going to switch to my 84. Turn it a little bit. And I want the back of our boot to have a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going to go, well, let's do this side over here first. So I'm going to put a little bit of my 84 right in here in the crack. And I'm going to do a little bit down here on the bottom. And this side, we're going to go right along like that. And maybe a little bit right along here. Okay, then I'm going to grab my 81. I'm going to soften that. So I'm going to pull my boots out just a little bit further with my line. Maybe add a little bit on this side over here. Yep, a little bit on this side. Like that. And then I'm going to take my colorless blender and soften that edge. Like that. Alright, so let's conquer some of this red that we have on here. And for that, I'm going to use E19, R29, and R27. And let's start up here with these berries in her hair. And so I'm going to start with my E19. And I'm going to add some shadows. And because she's kind of leaning down, I'm going to put my shadow on this side and underneath of the berry. And I'm going to grab 29. And I go over the top of the 19 just to fill it in, and then pull up just a little bit. The 19 was just to add a little bit of a shadow. And then we're going to fill it in with 27. And then later I went in and I added some white dots to my berries with my Sharpie white paint pen. Like that. Okay, let's add some stripes to her scarf down here. So again, I'm going to start with my E19. And I'm just going to add a little bit next to the edge. And I skipped every other one. I left one white. And then R29. And then 27. Let's get these berries on this side. So again, I'm going to start with my E19. And so I want them to be darkest underneath, so I'm going to add a little bit of my E19 along the bottoms. And these two. And then I'm going to grab 29. And then we're going to add right on top of our 19. Pull out just a little bit. I'm going to fill them in with my 27. And then she's also got this bow and these little, and her muffins are her mittens. So let's go back with our E19 and add some red to our mittens here first. So I'm going to add a little bit of my 19 here at the bottom. And on the bottom of this one. Then we're going to grab 29. And again, I fill in over the top of my 19. And go just a little bit past. And then 27. And then let's do this little bow on her wand here. So again, I'm switching back to my E19. Let's add a little bit in this inside curve of this bow. Maybe the underside of that. Let's get the inside curves of this bottom part. I'm just adding a little bit of shadows where I think it'd be darkest. And then I'm going to go back with my 29. And again, remember, you're going to go over your 19. I'm going to fill in the inside curves of this bow. But also go over the 19 so that I cover up the brown. And let's add a little bit up here to the top of each of these. So it looks like it kind of is darker at the bottom. And then we're going to go with our 27 to fill it in. And it's a pretty small area, so you just want to use the top of your pen, just the very tip. Like that. She looks cute so far. So now let's go do some of this green, and for that I'm going to do G99, G46, G43, and G40. And I think I'll start up here with these little leaves in her hair. And so I'm going to start with 99, and I'm going to do with my 99 right next to the berries. Just a tad, and I'm also going to go up the little center stripe. And for this one over here, I'm going to do the bottom. And then I'm going to grab 46, and we want to add a little bit more on top of my 99. Pulling out here into my white space. I'm going to grab 43. And I want to leave a little bit for my 40, so I'm going to leave a little bit of white showing. Add a little bit on top of this. And then we're going to fill it in with G40. This has got a nice yellow tone to it too, so it makes it really bright and shiny. That looks pretty good. So let's go down here and do the ones on her little wand. So again, I'm going to go back to my G99. I'm going to add some dark spots. So I'm going to go right next to the berries and down the center. And then these, I think I'll do the bottoms. So the sun can hit the top. Down the center of this one. We'll go with 46. Add a little bit on top of my 99. And then 43. And I'm trying to leave some white so I can get my shiny yellow one on there a little bit. Even if I run out of space, I'm going to go ahead and go over the whole thing with my G40. It just adds a light, nice yellow kind of tone to it. Okay, let's go do the cat. Okay, before I go do the cat, I'm going to do the stick on her little holly berries there. So for that, I'm going to use E77, and I'm not going to add any shadows. I'm just going to color that in. So and it's a pretty small stick, so you're going to have to be careful and just use the end of your pen. Clear down here to this side. And that takes care of that. So let's go to our kitty, and for that we're going to use E15, 13, 11, and then we're going to use for his inside of his ear and his foot pads R20 and 30, and his nose is going to be W5. So let's go ahead and start with E15, and I'm going to add some shadows. So I want to add some shadows on the end of his tail here, where it comes closest to his body and to her, and then his little foot pads. I want the bottoms to have a little bit of shadowing. And then he's got his body kind of tucked in here next to her mittens. So I'm going to go ahead and just fill that all the way in because it's going to be dark in there. She's holding him. And then his arm, I'm going to go ahead and get the bottom side, the bottom of his paw, and the bottom of this paw. Okay, before I do his face, I'm going to go back with my E13 and I'm going to fill in down here. So I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit on top of my E15. And we're just going to drag that out just a little bit. I'll add a little bit above this little foot pad right here. And then I'm going to grab my E11 and fill the rest of those areas in. And his tail. Okay, then let's go up here and conquer his face. So again, I'm going to switch back to E15, and I want to add where I want some shadows to be. So she is going to cast a shadow. So I'm going to go ahead and go right along the edge of his face, clear down here to his paw. Right in here, the indent like that. And then he's got some great little stripes right here on the side of his face. I'm just going to color those in. And maybe a little bit above his ear. I should have put a little bit up here. Like that. And then I'm going to grab my E13. And you want to soften your lines. I'm going to go over those. I'm going to add a little bit down here. And go along the edge of his face and pull my line out. got a little circle going there. I'm thinking that I'm going to bring this medium color up here to his nose. Like that. And I'm going to fill it in with my E11. So I'm just going to brush clear out from the outside into the center, filling in his little face. And my E11 has a little bit of a pink tone to it, so I'm going to go down here, and even though I've already colored this section in, I think I'll color over it again just a little bit. Like that. There, he looks really cute. So let's color his nose, and for that we've got W5. So I'm just going to color his little nose in. And then for his ears, I'm going to use R20 and 30, or for his ear, I guess. So I'm going to start with R20. I'm going to add a little bit down here where I want it to be darkest, along this little line. And then I'm going to take my R30 and fill it in. Okay, and then for his foot pads too, so we're going to do R20 for his foot pad. And I'm going to do R20 down here at the bottom. And then fill it in with R30. Oh, he's cute. Okay, everybody, so that is Barry. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope you had a good time. We'll see you next time. Have a great day.